As the United States struggles with bailout after bailout, unemployment, the war on terror, health care reform, and a host of other challenges, many Americans are looking for answers. A significant portion believes the government can fix these issues, but there's an inherent problem with that approach. The more power the government accumulates, the less it is accountable to the people it is supposed to serve. And as Lord Acton put it so clearly, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The problems our nation faces didn't happen overnight. They've been building for decades. That is why Americans need to step back and look at what's happened in the past and compare those patterns with what is happening now. As Americans, we need to understand what will happen to our freedom as long as we allow the federal government to centralize more power. Without exception, nations that allowed for that accumulation of power simultaneously accelerated down the path towards totalitarianism. The more power their political leadership accumulated, the more they celebrated their own greatness. The statues or the temples became grander. The heads on the posters got bigger. The leaders' supporters became more militant. The cult of personality had arrived. It has never mattered whether the titles were or are Generalissimo, El Duce, the Fuhrer, Dear Leader, President for Life, or Supreme Leader. They all refer to the same Messiah complex these tyrants inevitably developed. The political leader or the chosen one would save the people from themselves. Their methods were largely the same, differing only in style and label. There is no better textbook example of what havoc a leader with a Messiah complex can cause than in looking at the rise of Nazi Germany and the ascendancy of Adolf Hitler. Due to the conditions in Germany after World War I, the people were prepared for change. Along came an obscure politician named Adolf Hitler who promised the Germans change. He offered hope. He was a captivating and skilled orator. Once Hitler was installed as chancellor, in order for him and his supporters to centralize power, a critical event was staged. The Reichstag was burned. That was the equivalent of our Congress being torched. Certain segments of the population were blamed for it. Those blamed were labeled terrorists. These so-called terrorists were actually Hitler's opposition. They were rounded up and dealt with swiftly. The Reichstag fire set the stage for a national emergency, and the government passed an enabling act designed to centralize police power into the hands of a few. Within a short time after the Reichstag fire, Hitler also took over large sectors of the economy, automobiles and banking, utilities, and the list went on and on. And German troops were forced to pledge to follow Hitler rather than the constitution of the German Reich. A group called the Hitler Youth were organized. Some Germans derisively referred to them as Homo Youth because of the homosexuality so prevalent in their leadership. Many of these youth embraced that same lifestyle. Germans were then forced to volunteer for Hitler's public programs. Commemorative stamps of German volunteers for Hitler's public programs were issued. Hitler's brown shirts were put into place as a civilian security force. Hitler's youth filled the role as well. Not long after that came the Gestapo and the SS. With them, the death camps. Why does this matter to us? For decades, the United States has seen a steady but clear consolidation of power at the federal level, and particularly within the executive branch. After 9/11, like the Reichstag fire, America was quickly on the path toward a police state. Within a few days, the 300-plus page Patriot Act was passed. It had clearly been written before 9/11. Few, if any, members of Congress read the document before voting for it. A Department of Homeland Security was created, pulling a host of federal agencies under one authority, and the war on terror began. Enemy combatants were rounded up and denied due process. In later years, Americans have learned that some have been abused, tortured, and even killed. Americans also learned that wiretapping and surveillance were broad and widespread, not always centered on terrorists. Much of this was done by contractors outside the reach of military law. Under the Bush administration, the Constitution was ignored with impunity. The President himself was often referred to as the Commander-in-Chief for everybody, not just the military. All of this was approved by and happened under a supposedly conservative administration. Clearly, something was changing. Since the election of Barack Hussein Obama, the trend of accumulation of power into the office of the President of the United States has become unprecedented. Another attack of terrorism on the United States may make a national police force and adherence to the President rather than the Constitution by our armed forces a reality. From the war on terror to domestic surveillance and wiretapping, the Obama administration has not reversed a single significant policy of the previous administration. In fact, it has gone farther. Large sectors of the economy have been taken over by the government. Dozens of czars have been appointed with nearly dictatorial powers. Celebrities have come forward in support.
I pledge. I pledge. I pledge. I pledge. I pledge.
To be the change.
To be the change.
I pledge.
To be a servant to our president.
And all mankind. Because together we can. Together we are.
And
together we will be the change that we seek.
Note that these Hollywood personalities are saying, I pledge to be a servant to the President and to all mankind. Never in the history of the United States have we had a similar situation where people are being asked to pledge to be a servant to the President or any public official. Youth across the country are being indoctrinated by their own teachers or others to sing hymns of praise to President Obama.
We're gonna spread happiness. We're gonna spread freedom. Obama's gonna change it. Obama's gonna lead 'em. We're gonna change it and rearrange it. We're gonna change the world. Yes, we can. 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 Yes, we can.
Out, out, Obama speaks on race America. Yes, we can. Embrace burdens of our past, down the ridiculous of our past. Yes, we can.
The chant Alpha Omega by these young men in camouflage pants and boots refers to the book of Revelation,